Welcome to Average Joe. Let's talk about it. This is episode one, and today we're going to dive into why the word average isn't an insult. It's actually a superpower, and it really depends on your perspective and how positive your outlook is on the world. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So, life is heavy, right? We all deal with something in our lives, and we'll just call it stuff for now. Not necessarily to put a name on it because everybody's life is different. Everybody's going through different struggles. And the biggest part about it all is that a lot of times we're pretending not to be, right? We're trying to show a good face, whether because we have children and we're trying to be strong for them, or we have a loved one that we want to shield from, the stress and the issues. But a lot of times that's not helpful. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to try to put a positive spin on how we look at things, right? Because that's everything. So I guess the question is have you ever felt behind? Let's start there, right? Because I'll tell you what, if you have or if you do, welcome to the party. You're early, and we're not here to fix, right? I don't know what your life is like. I can only speak from experience, and it's not something that I truly believe you don't want to fix, really, unless you truly believe it's broken. But we're not. None of us are broken, right? We just have to get the right perspective to see the situation differently. So instead of fixing it, we're going to try to turn it around and find that silver lining without being too cliche. So, with that, understand, right? Most of us not broken, just really good at overthinking what normal should look like. And where do we get these ideas, right? I mean, I could name off a list of things starting with social media. But even before social media came around, right? We kind of compared ourselves with what we saw on the television or what we read in magazines and papers. And this is a long-standing struggle with being comfortable in your skin and not looking outward, right? Understanding that you're good enough from the inside without comparison. So let's talk about the word average, right? Most people equate average to being mediocre, but it's not. I mean, that's a term that people use every day, and the title of the channel and the show is Average Joe, and really what that means is, everybody we have a lot of things in common, whether we believe it or not. These days, and what you see on TV and social media and all these external inputs that we're getting on demand all the time, it's difficult to see that, right? We think that you've got to be exceptional in order to stand out, and that's not necessarily the case. Being average doesn't necessarily mean being mediocre and not top tier or above par. What it means in these terms, as far as I'm concerned, is you're dependable, right? You're persistent, you're consistent, all of those words, those buzzwords that say, hey, we show up even when it's inconvenient, and we try to do the right thing as much as possible, even with the barriers that we have today. We're still there, right? We open our eyes, we open our ears, and we try to understand what's going on around us and not let it bring us down, but also get kind of motivate us to be better. Consistency isn't as recognized as exceptional performance, and not to say that that's a bad thing, right? We all want to be our best, right? And everybody's idea of what best is different. So it's about the amount of pressure that you put on yourself, and understand that first before you start believing that the external pressures that you have in your life are driving you a certain direction. It's up to you to change that pathway and understand that, hey, from inside, I need to redirect and, find a better way for myself to get that feeling that I am being a great member of society. We've all grown up with different cultures and upbringings, and our parents taught us what was right and wrong. That's only a part of it, right? Because then when you get older, you start understanding some truths about what is right and wrong, and there is some gray there. But to not to get on a tangent, but just understand that, as a person who is not considering themselves exceptional and they feel that being average is just low key a nobody. It's not always a bad thing, but you've got to put a different perspective on it, right? Because you're not replaceable, right? You're reliable. And a lot of those folks that shoot for the moon, they burn out real quick, right? So flash in the pan is a good phrase for that, right? So life is a marathon. It's not a sprint to the finish, right? By no means. So you try to show up when you can, be available when necessary, but always be consistent. So that being said, we've talked a lot about pressure and how that affects us and where those pressures come from. I would say that if I were to compare it with something as far as things feeling heavy and a burden and overwhelming, I would put it in perspective that, use the analogy that when a baseball player goes out and he's standing in the on deck circle, they put the weights on the bat, right? And there's a reason for that, right? Because if it feels heavy at first, right, when you overcome those burdens and those pressures, and then you meet them again for the second time, it's like dropping the handle to the deck and tapping it a couple times and watching that weight fall off, and then you grab that bat by the handle and you go out to the batter's box and you're swinging for the fences. So just, keep that in mind. Pressure is there to make you stronger, right? And by no means, if you can't handle it right away and take it all on and you're feeling overwhelmed and anxious, that's part of the process. And in order to overcome that, you've got to get through it. And then when you're done, the next time that you face that battle or that struggle, it's nothing to you. So keep that in mind. So if today feels unwinnable, maybe it's just not your day. You're not going to win every day, and putting that pressure on yourself to have a good day every day is not necessary. It's okay to have problems. It's okay to have struggles. It's all about how you meet them and what you do after the fact, right? I mean, I could go into so many different phrases and movie quotes, like Rocky, for instance. He says, it's not how hard you get hit or how many times you get knocked down. It's about how you get back up, right? So even though you go through these things, showing up consistently is the most important thing. It's okay to put on a face, but it's also okay to put words to how you're feeling as well. Talk to somebody. This is very therapeutic for me. I'm out here and I'm trying to take care of things and be the best dad and the best husband and the best employee and the best human that I can be. And I'm hoping that by sharing my experiences and sharing my feelings and trying to put a new look on some of these things that we are negative about, I hope it comes across as helpful, right? I'm not here to change lives. I'm not here to even change my own life, but I'm definitely here to open up and talk about those things that a lot of us we tend not to talk about because we feel like if we do, then that's creating a weakness in us. And it's not. I think it's our biggest strength. I think if you're able to overcome the self consciousness of not wanting to appear weak, it will make you stronger. Because going back to being pressured, right? Pressure to be exceptional in a world that runs on dependability, and you can't be exceptional 100% of the time. So in that, it's consistency. Can you be exceptional consistently 100% of the time? Hell no. And you don't want to be, because at some point you will burn out, and that'll be the end, right? So comparison doesn't mean you're losing. You're just looking in the wrong direction. So if you're comparing yourself to somebody who's doing amazing things and you're not making attempts to get there in your own way, well, I mean, that's kind of on you, but also at the same time, who who and where is this pressure coming from? If it's external from another person, I guess it really all depends on who that person is and how much they mean to you, and whether or not that matters. But at the end of the day, it's you that matters, right? You have to do what's good for yourself. And a lot of times, you know, it sounds selfish to say, but you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself first. So make yourself the priority. Take care of what you need to take care of for yourself to be in a better place, and then start working on the folks around you and tending to their needs, especially if it's your wife or if it's your kids, or a loved one in need, or even a friend, right? Or heck, even a stranger, right? Because there's not a lot of that happening in the world. We do need to step up, and we do need to lend a hand anyway we can, anytime we can. So going back to comparison and understanding how to feel around something like that, and how to get rid of those external pressures from, delivering you to the wrong mindset. Just understand this. Just because someone's louder doesn't mean they're doing better. I know we've seen, talk and discussion about, folks who are usually adamant about their lives on social media, and they're parading around like everything's all hunky dory, is usually quite the opposite, because they're putting on that face. And I wouldn't say it's all the time, but I would say that it's probably the majority of the time. We only think about showing off our most positive highlights in our life, because there is a lot of negativity out there. And while it is good to be out there posting, happiness and all the other kind of things, just understand that those folks, even myself, when I'm putting on that smile and I'm laughing and I'm joking, it's okay to be dying inside, so to speak. But you come around from that, and you become stronger. And the more you identify some of these flaws that you have within yourself, and you open up about it, you talk about it, I think the stronger a person can be. So I mentioned burnout, right? What is it? Everybody has a different idea of what burnout is. And it's not about quitting. It's not about wanting to quit, or not even, it's not about not being physically able to complete either. It's just that the mind and the body is asking for a change of pace, to slow down, to take a break. So burnout's not a bad word. I think it's just not used properly when it comes to how you're feeling about a certain situation, and trying to overcome something in your life, or what, even if it means something, like, hey, having a hard time at work, think I'm burnout. The question is are you really, or are you just mentally overwhelmed? And that's the hardest thing for us to identify. We always equate being burnt out with just being tired, being exhausted, and that's part of it. The rest of it is just internally understanding what our limits are, how much we can tolerate, and what we do to push past it. And if you can't, then you just stop. You step back. You give yourself a moment, or a few, whatever's needed, whatever's necessary, because it's the same kind of concept as taking care of others before you take care of yourself, right? You have to take care of yourself first to be able to give your best to others. And it's the same for your job. If you're out there and you are just pounding the pavement every day to the point where you can't function outside of work, and it's getting to the point where you're waking up and you don't even want to go, there could be a reason there, right? Identify what that is, and if that means that you need to take some time, then make sure it happens, and always have a backup plan. Because if you're the only person that can do that job, then there's something wrong there. There's always got to be an alternative method to getting the job done. And these days, employers don't think about that. They rely heavily on their employees, especially the ones that have the hard jobs, that are out there doing it every day and not complaining and showing up on time, leaving late, maybe even coming in early. But that's a path to being burned out. That's definitely not the path you want to take. Right? You want to continue to enjoy your job, and the best way to do that, without getting to the point where you're pulling your hair out, is to stop for a minute, ask for some time. And if you're doing a project, ask for an extension, whatever. If they want you around and they see your productivity, they're not going to deny you the time you need to be your best, because they don't want you coming in and giving half of what you normally give because your tank is empty. So identify it, stop it, take a break, right? Because tired doesn't mean that you're weak. Tired is doing all the things that you're being asked to do, and in some cases, you are going above and beyond, right? And that's okay too, right? That's that little bit of exceptionalism, that I was talking about earlier, where we have moments where we have to be exceptional, and sometimes we enjoy that exceptionalism, and other times it's it's a tough mountain to climb, and it's great when you get to the top. It's a good feeling. You may or may not get recognition for it, but who cares? That's not what you're there for. You're there to perform and internalize, how that makes you feel, and then move on to the next thing. So, exhaustion is the product of hard work, and if it's part of your strength, it's not the opposite. It doesn't make you weak when you're tired. It just means you're working your ass off. So, over the course of the coming episodes, I'll be talking more and more about, just real life things, not necessarily chasing happiness, right? Happiness should come more organically. There's things in your lives that motivate you. I know there are things that, I enjoy. I know there's people that I enjoy. I know there's reasons that I wake up every day, and this is one of them. Getting out here and just saying my piece, even if it's into a microphone, not expecting anybody to hear. But, if that happens and, people catch on and this catches on, then that's a happy accident. And it's a nice side benefit, right? I don't get nothing from this, except a little catharsism, if I say that right, being able to kind of speak outwardly about things that I've internalized in my life and my experiences. So it's about clarity, right? You get that happiness from organic things that happen in your lives, or some consistent, steady uh, activities and people who are always there for you. But at the end of the day, we're just looking for clarity, right? So the best thing is just to stop fighting the fact that things are tough. Acknowledge and plan how to leverage what's around you to overcome those things that you feel like are keeping you down. And whether that be somebody that's personal to you, that's close to you in your life, that you have a great relationship with, that you can speak openly about these things, or it's there's no weakness in going to talk to, um, like a behavioral counselor, or getting some mental health help. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but we're not here to do that. And this show, we're here to talk about some things that are usually difficult to talk about, and some things that I don't even think a lot of people kind of come across, because they're just too busy in their lives to give themselves a second to understand where these feelings are coming from and how to adjust them, right? I don't ever want to say fix, because we're not broken, right? And if you feel broken, then sit down for a second, take a breath, and understand that you're not, because you're a person with issues like everyone else, and how you deal with them is really going to turn things around. So I really hope that I've helped today with a little bit of, some of the things that I've talked about. I'm going to continue to do these episodes, different topics every time. I'm hoping that it'll evolve eventually into, getting some other people on the show, having some conversations, doing some interviews, asking some hard questions, and see where it goes from there. This has been Average Joe. Let's talk about it. I appreciate you for coming on to the channel and listening. And one of the things that I want you to take away is even if you're not 100%, you're still all in, and you always will be. And you're better than anything or anyone could ever think of you. And you wouldn't be here if you weren't important. So stay safe out there, understand your worth, and be the best that you can be without those pressures telling you you're not. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next episode.